Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Real Life Stories with Pankaj. Folks, today I'm going to try to add a little bit of humor also into this incident and share that with you. This happened many years ago. I'll just say several moons ago. I was not married at that time, I was a bachelor, just fresh into my corporate career. And I was in the context was this was sometime in summer, peak June, and I was really in a very hot part of the country, um, interacting and engaging with a customer who was potentially going to buy one of the newer products that we had for the company that I was working for. And so back and forth in those negotiations that were happening, one evening before the client called me and said, "Look, let's finalize this. And listen, because we don't have a lot of um, you know confirmation or evidence on the price that you're asking me to pay, do me a favor, based on the great relationship that we have, why don't you come back in tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and just bring with me a redacted version for of another purchase order, right, for another client. I don't need to see who they are, but I just need to make sure that I'm being offered a fair price. And if it is, then we'll go ahead." So when the customer gave me that information and homework to do, I was on cloud nine. It was a pretty reasonable sized gig and engagement. Sorry, and so I reached out to my head office and asked them to fax. Yes, there was a thing called fax at that time. Fax me a purchase order that had a same or similar product. And so my head office, faxed it to me. I was in a branch office and I received the fax. I saw that a paper had come through. I looked at very briefly, saw that it was kind of like a purchase order, put that in my briefcase and went home. And that evening, ladies and gentlemen, I did what a lot of bachelors do, which is have a little of a drinking session, right? Social session with a few friends. And let's just say that evening was one of those evenings where we had a good time, consumed a lot of drinks, and then slept off without eating any food, just because it had gotten very late. Well, next day morning, I got up almost around 8:30 and realized that I had not I didn't have any time to get ready because of I had the meeting at 9 o'clock. I grabbed my briefcase and I sort of just ran out the door, and I was bang on time at 9 a.m. at the client office. Now it so happens that in those summer days, the office building that this client was in was an air conditioned building. For whatever reason that day, the power electricity has gone out, and so I was, sitting in this office, and the client told me, "Look, yeah, I got to deal with some situation." The person was really the leader of the IT function in those days, and so he said, "Look, because the computers are down, I need to just make sure that some of the operational things are working out. So make yourself comfortable, and I'll be back." Well, folks, I and my colleague who had joined me for this closing meeting uh, sat in the office. Now, it so happened that I had not had any food last night. I had no time to have food in the morning, so no breakfast. I had no time to even drink a glass of water. And so, as you can imagine, I don't know, maybe not all of you, but some of you could imagine that you have this terrible hangover from all the, celebration last night, and you're thirsty. It's summertime. You're also hungry, but then look, you don't want to go out to the cafeteria and take your time, and the customer comes back and wonders where you are, so you put up a brave front and continue waiting for the customer to come back. Well, 9 o'clock became 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock became 11 o'clock, and the client came in around 11 o'clock and basically just said, "Listen, I'm so sorry," apologized for the delay, said he's gonna he still had some little things to do. Would I be okay if I just waited a couple more minutes? And I said, "Sure, of course I'll do that." Now by 11 o'clock or 11:30, I had started to get, let's just say, a little bit more impacted by the lack of food and water and a terrible hangover. So still trying to hold it all in, and I held it in. It became 11:30, 12. I think the customer came back at around 1 o'clock or so. So it was literally like mid afternoon. Now, by this time, I was sitting in this office which had no electricity. So, because there was no really outlets, no windows, because it was air conditioned office, it had pretty much become like this hot chamber, right? Literally a hot chamber. And added to that with my personal health situation, it was not a good combination. So anyway, but I was still holding up. Around 1 o'clock, the customer comes in, apologized again, and just said, "Look, I know we've had the conversation yesterday. So if you've done the homework, we can complete that and get going." And I said, "Absolutely, sir. And we'll be delighted. You had asked me to do this. I got, by the way, this purchase order, and I actually bent down to open my briefcase and pick the purchase order out. And so, as you can imagine, I'm bending down, I'm lifting up the purchase order, and the customer can see what's in it. I can. And I see that the price that's quoted in the purchase order is way below what I had quoted this customer, right? So, all of a sudden, it struck me that I'm going to show him a piece of paper as evidence, which actually showed that he's not getting a great deal. And that moment of realization, combined with the effects of the no electricity, the heat in the room, the terrible hangover, headache, thirsty, hungry feeling in me, just had this amazing combination. And as this paper comes up, I look at it, folks. True to God, I fainted. I actually passed out. No kidding. My A few minutes later, my colleague, I remember, he was throwing some water on me and just sort of asking if I was okay or not. I see my customer standing here looking very concerned. I realized that they would have seen the paper and what caused this to happen, which my colleague basically said, yeah, that did happen. They did see what was in that purchase order. But that day, my customer asked me to simply go back and and get better. Now, I can't tell you how terrible I was feeling that evening because of a number of things, right? And so my takeaway from that incidents were for many, and I'll share those with you. But the after story of that is also important. The after story is that my customer actually called me. He did give me the order. We did adjust the price a little bit. He actually gave me a premium, and he said that it is because I was honest and I did comply with what we agreed to do in order to close the deal. So it became a very lifelong relationship. This was one of the very large consumer product companies, so it became a marquee order for the organization I was working in, and I got a customer a great relationship to last many much more time. But my takeaways, folks, from that day, I kid you not, I never drank the evening before any negotiations were to happen. So my suggestion to anybody listening to this is, if you're young and you have a lot of desire to have social interactions and celebrations, well, if it's before an important meeting, try not to do that. But even if you do it, stay hydrated. And if you do that, make sure you wake up on time and don't have any hangover, and give yourself the time to get really prepared for that evening, that morning, that meeting. um, so those were some of the basic sort of takeaways that I had, which I sort of kept with me through the rest of my journey in sales and marketing. So there you go. That's was one of the most hilarious, funny, but a deeply impactful stories or incidents that happened. So if that brings us to an end to this episode of Real Life Stories with Pankaj. Hope you liked it. I don't know if the humor came across or not. I mean, I just, every time I think about it and I tell anyone, they just laugh off. So I thought I'll bring that story as a different kind of a story compared to the ones that I've done so far. So Well, hope you stay healthy and safe. And till next time, bye bye.